Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
This is a new report surfaces of a possible second whistleblower.
The New York Times reports that there may be a second possible whistleblower, someone with more direct knowledge of the president's approach to Ukraine than the first whistleblower. That first whistleblower's complaint that President Trump was, in effect, using the power of his office to bully a foreign government into investigating a political rival. That complaint is what touched off this impeachment inquiry. The second official, according to the Times, was interviewed by the Inspector General in the follow-up to the initial complaint, and that person, said to be an intelligence official, is now weighing whether to file a complaint of their own.
ABC's David Wright. New York City police have a 24-year-old man in custody after a quadruple killing early this morning. Police say 4 homeless men were beaten to death with a metal object in downtown Manhattan.
At this point, it appears that the victims were sleeping.
NYPD Manhattan South Commanding Officer Michael Baldessano, a 5th man, was critically injured. Iran has released an Australian couple that had been detained for 3 months. Jolie King and Mark Firkin's crime, flying a drone without a permit. Australian Foreign Minister Maurice Payne.
For Jolie and for Mark, the ordeal that they have been through is now over.
Iran has dropped the charges. You're listening to ABC News.
There's nothing like meeting face-to-face, and there's nothing like Zoom to make that happen. Zoom lets you connect and do business across town or around the world. Zoom ties together all of your communication needs into one easy platform for video conferencing, phone calls, group chat, webinars, and your conference rooms. Connect easily from anywhere, your mobile phone, your laptop, or conference room. Zoom is how business gets done. Get your free account at Zoom.com today. Meet happy with Zoom.
Offer not valid in all states or where prohibited by law. Loans are subject to lender approval. See website for details.
Need cash but have bad credit or maxed out cards? Now you can get a personal loan for up to $5,000, whatever your credit, with no paperwork. 27cash.com is one of the nation's largest personal loan networks. If you have a checking account and a regular income source, you can get cash in your account as soon as tomorrow. Type this into your smartphone or computer address bar. www.27cash.com. That's 27cash.com. 27cash.com.
Police in Florida saying Friday that a tip from a woman's parents led to her arrest for having explosive, enough of them, to harm hundreds of people.
Sheriff deputies claimed 27-year-old Michelle Coates had 24 pipe bombs loaded with nails and screws for shrapnel, 23 knives, bows and arrows, pellet guns, and an assortment of DVDs and books about assassins, serial murderers, and mass killings, ranging from the Columbine Massacre to the Oklahoma City bombing.
ABC Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas oversees a tense calm in Hong Kong Saturday after a night of violence following weeks of pro-democracy protests. With our partners at Sky News, correspondent Siab Han Robbins in Hong Kong.
There was a huge amount of violence in a very contained time here. We were here, suddenly we started seeing, after hours of peaceful protest, protesters throwing petrol bombs at various targets, many of them connected to China or symbols of the state. Then eventually the police arrived. They cleared the streets very quickly. There wasn't actually a confrontation here. But in other areas, a 14-year-old boy was shot in the thigh. He is in hospital.
The boy underwent surgery and is in serious condition. Napa winemaker Augustin Haneas, the 5th parent to learn his fate in the college admissions scandal, sentenced to 5 months in prison by a federal judge in Boston. It's the toughest sentence yet handed down in the Varsity Blues investigation. This is ABC News.
Offer not valid in all states or where prohibited by law. Loans are subject to lender approval. See website for details.
Need cash but have bad credit or maxed out cards? Now you can get a personal loan for up to $5,000, whatever your credit, with no paperwork. 27cash.com is one of the nation's largest personal loan networks. If you have a checking account and a regular income source, you can get cash in your account as soon as tomorrow. Type this into your smartphone or computer address bar. www.27cash.com. That's 27cash.com. 27cash.com.
Dave Packer, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont and the Pass area for today, sunny, pleasant, high 85, west winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Winds become calm tonight with a clear low down to 57. Tomorrow, Sunday, sunny, high 88. North winds of 5 to 10 with gusts to 20 miles per hour. For the Inland Empire for today, sunny, high 88, west winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Palm Springs, sunny, high 94 with a light southeast wind. I'm TJ Matthews for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Take KMET 1490 AM with you everywhere you go by downloading our free smartphone apps found on the KMET website, KMET1490am.com. You can also go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store on your phone to download the free app. Now you can listen live or play any of your favorite programmers' podcasts using your smartphone. Don't miss out on the free KMET smartphone apps. Go to KMET1490am.com and download your free phone app today.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Well, welcome. It is time for Constitution Radio on KMET 1490 AM. I am Doug and IPAC. Only those watching the video have any clue what I just did or said.
That is a lock and load statement.
Yeah, I love this shirt. Basically, for those of you listening, I'm wearing a black shirt that says IPAC, like iPad or iPhone, except for the I is a bullet, and then it says PAC, P-A-C, and then it's got I think a Glock. It looks like a Glock to me underneath it. White silhouette of one. I've got a list of things I want to talk about today, but I flipped on my TV and was watching a couple of liberal knuckleheads speak to each other. It was if you have Spectrum cable, which I do, and I'm getting ready to get rid of it again. I got rid of it, then they sweet talked me back with a sweet deal, and then the moment the deal was up after like 6 months, they jacked everything up, and now I'm like, screw you guys, I'm gone. So I'm getting ready to get my internet through like Frontier because it's Fios, and then get like YouTube TV and Netflix, and I'll be good. But and it'll be like $80 less a month. But anyway, Spectrum, what they've done is, it used to be when you watched television and then you turned it off and you turned off your cable box, when you turned it back on, it would come on the channel you left off on. So if you're watching MSNBC when you turned it off, which I know most of you guys do, then when it came on, it would be MSNBC. What they've done now is they created Spectrum One. It's their own station on Channel 1, and it's a kind of a news, culture, libtard talk station. And now, no matter what station you had it on when you turned your box off, when you turn it on, it automatically goes to Spectrum One. That does two things. Number one, it gives them really good ratings, because every time you turn on your box, you're watching them for a moment. And number two, it forces you to watch them in the beginning before you scramble to change a channel. But sometimes it's good, because while they are as far left as CNN and MSNBC, the news and all that is presented in a manner that at least you can kind of digest it. It's not the hysterical Rachel Maddow, oh, look at that PGA kind of, attitude. It's almost like PBS. It's kind of got that drone, also that monotone drone. So I turn on, and I apologize to my co-host. I haven't introduced them yet, and I will. So I turn it on, and let's see. This guy's name is Malcolm Gladwell. He's a staff writer for The New Yorker, and he's speaking to some other guy, and I don't remember the name of the other guy. I didn't write it down. It's some comedian, writer, screenplay writer, something like that. The guy he's talking to is a black gentleman. Malcolm Gladwell claims to be black, but he doesn't look black to me. He's got real, maybe some features, but for the most part, he's a white guy. So Elizabeth Warren immediately came to mind. But anyway, and he made this statement, and I wanted to discuss this first. God, the window is like right in my glasses for you watching video. Isn't that horrible? Anyway, here's what he said, and then I'll introduce my co-hosts and let them comment on this. He said gerrymandering and suppression of the vote heavily influenced the 2016 election. Now, That's what the left believes. Trump did not win because he was popular enough. Trump did not win because that's what the people wanted. Trump did not win because he spoke to the hearts of a number of Americans or that many agree to his policies. It was just because the Republicans cheated through gerrymandering and voter suppression, which is voter ID. But in their minds is voter suppression because poor people don't have IDs. God knows how they cash their welfare checks. But they don't have IDs, therefore they can't vote because they have to show their ID, or maybe it's just too hard for them to pull it out of their purse, whatever. Because they got, which I guess would be very difficult when you have to do it 6 or 7 times at different voting places. But nonetheless, that's their thinking. All right, now my usual crew of co-hosts with me. I've got Alan Myers, our San Diego man. We've got Alex Ferguson, our Los Angeles County man. And we got Dennis Jackson, our Riverside County man. So we are spanning 3 counties when it comes to co-hosts. I am in Riverside County as well in my deeply dug cement tunnel underneath Murrieta, California, bomb shelter. And I'm curious what these gentlemen have to say about this. And I want to start with Alex because he's the one that really has an opportunity to watch the news more than us. And he's the one don't get me wrong. All of us are in tune with what the other side thinks. But Alex has a special understanding of what the other side thinks. You'll understand what I mean in just a second. So Alex Ferguson, and I apologize, Alex, you called to me, I think it was yesterday, and I didn't get back to you, and I apologize for that. I've been real hard to get a hold of the last 14 years, and so you just so happen to fit into that little category there. Boy, I'm full of it today. Alex, what are your thoughts about what I said? All right, so this guy, he's an author. He's written books, and he also writes for the New Yorker. That gerrymandering and suppression of the vote had an influence of 2016. I think what he was saying was, without actually saying, and I made a note so I wouldn't forget how to say this, change the trajectory of the 2016 election. I think that's what he was trying to say. So what's your thoughts, Mr. Ferguson?
My thought is that these liberals are flat out liars. They've gotten to the point now
okay,
where they open their mouth and a whole bunch of lies come pouring out, and you haven't got time to check them all. Whatever. But I know for sure that I've seen people on the Fox networks talking about studies where there isn't any vote suppression. It doesn't exist.
No, we're a bunch of racists, don't you know?
Well, yesterday
all white people. We're just a bunch of racists, and we didn't want the blacks to vote.
Yesterday, I had lunch with a guy I graduated from college with, and he was an LAPD through his retirement. And he told me, we just happened to be discussing this, and he said that in his experience as an LAPD, he doesn't remember coming up with anybody that didn't have a photo ID. He said they got it just to cash their welfare checks. They got to have that ID.
Mentioning, well, I talked to a friend who spends a lot of time in the inner city, and just because he's a black conservative, and just because he wanted to prove the point, without bringing up voting, without bringing up voting ID, voter ID laws, or any of that, he just was asking people, do you normally carry your ID? Do you have an ID? And he had a little thing. He made it look like he was, conducting a radio type survey or something like that. And so he recorded all of the answers too, and he got their permission and all that jazz. And he said he talked to about 40 people, and every single one of them not only had ID and carries it with them at all times. A number of them made the statement, well, how can you exist in society without one? You need it for everything. Yeah, it's a false argument.
Like I say, the left at this point has broken through a barrier where they don't even try to justify their lies. They just repeat the lies and repeat them, and the devil take the hindmost.
Well, we've allowed the northwest end of our co-host group to speak. I'm going to go to the southern end of it now. Have Alan give his comments. All right, so gerrymandering and voter suppression, and Mr. Ferguson hammered on the voter suppression part. I didn't hear him really say much about gerrymandering, but we know that the gerrymandering is actually the opposite direction. They're redrawing the district lines to help the Democrats, especially in California. But normally conservatives don't play that kind of game. We're just naturally try to be fair, and they naturally are liars. And in fact, when it cracked me up, because when Alex said, all they do is lie, I thought to myself, well, you mean in between their satanic chants? But anyway. Alan,
yes, sir.
What's your thoughts? Gerrymandering and voter suppression heavily influenced the 2016 election, according to Mr. Gladwell.
Starting with voter, suppression or ID. If you go to Mexico, which is just to the south of us, it's I'm not knocking.
I live in Mexico at the rate things are going. It's like, well, if you go to Mexico, which is where we are.
I'm not knocking the country or the people. It's not known as being a very wealthy country.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to vote in Mexico, you have to be a Mexican citizen, and you must have a photo voter ID card.
Yeah, so there's a special voter ID. It's not just your regular ID.
It's not your driver's license. It's a pictured voter ID card, which means if they can institute that, I don't hear anybody screaming voter suppression in Mexico. If you want to go into,
they don't shout voter suppression because the right totalitarians just keep winning somehow with a really high 80 to 90% vote percentile. So,
well, you only count the ones you like. Yeah. But you think about the rest of our life. You want to open a bank account? You need you need an ID card.
Mm-hmm.
You want to drive a car legally? You need ID. You want to go into a bar, and you're over 21, and you're not going in to drink. You're just going in because your friends are there. There's good music. Get your ID out.
Oh, I got one for you. If you want to vote at a union meeting, you better have ID.
Right. If we're really talking about making sure everyone is, see, there's a difference between, and this is the art of the use of words.
Yeah.
They talk about suppression. What they're really talking about is not suppressing legal voters. They're talking about not suppressing non-legal voters. If you require an ID, you have the ability to suppress non-legal voters from voting.
Which is like half of the Democratic voting bloc, I'm sure. Well, maybe that's a little bit of exaggeration, a little bit.
It's listening to the words they choose and then understanding what they mean. See, suppression is bad, so we can't suppress anyone because we're all about equality, whether you're here legally or not, whether you're entitled to vote or not. That is not a problem for. That's a problem for the Democrats because they don't want to suppress non-legal voting. Therefore, voter suppression is a problem. Gerrymandering would affect local or statewide elections or voting for members in the House.
Districts. It does apply.
It's not going to affect voting for the president.
This is true. It will affect federal representative seats and state representative seats.
Right. And they could be worried about not getting – it's not that they're worried about gerrymandering. They're worried that they're not getting enough of it for their benefit. Once again, use of the words.
Right.
Because the more they can gerrymander, the more they can stack the districts to their benefit, the more representation they'll get in the House and the more likely they can either push an agenda or prevent one.
Gerrymandering is important to them because it's a democratic tool. When I say democratic, I don't mean Democratic Party. I mean democratic as in democracy.
And we know
it's all about making sure the population is just right, split just right, so that everybody's equal and it's just right for the democracy.
What's really neat about the being able to say democracy on the air is, as you know, for me, it's a 4-letter word, and it's
one
about
one of the few 4-letter words the FCC lets us say. Democracy.
Right, and it's absolutely about mob rule. It's not about the rule of law. It's about the whim of whoever is in power at that moment.
Right. Exactly.
To me, over the whole thing, because if you can move the conversation with misuse of words, you can get away from. You can now badmouth the Electoral College and, this is really bad. Well, there's a reason for the Electoral College, but without getting the Electoral College into the national discussion, we'll just call it bad because we had these two problems, which is the art of the misdirection. We won't deal with what's really going on or understanding it. We'll just make things that we want look more attractive.
I like that. The art of the misdirection. I think that ought to be a book. That sounds like a great name for a book.
It's called The Misdirection.
And then you open up the book and it says Democrat Party. And that's it.
It's a short read.
Well, I've got a book called The Accomplishments of Bill Clinton. You open it up and all the pages are blank.
You mean they didn't list his mistresses?
Those aren't accomplishments. They just kind of fell into his lap.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. That's one place to fall.
Dennis, the man, the legend, the guy with the voice for radio, holding down the fort here in Riverside County. Your turn to you're the anchor here. So I expect this to be really good. Pressure's on, buddy.
Well,
so
if you want to know my
gerrymandering and suppression of vote, right? That's what the left believes. Trump didn't win it because he's a good candidate. He didn't win it because people wanted him. It was, because of cheating by the GOP.
Well, Alan developed, the second end of that, but didn't really steal my thunder, but I agree with him. The gerrymander has nothing to do with the popular vote in a state as far as that goes. It does affect, like you say, congressional districts and all of that. So now you have the representation in the House. But as far as how California votes, Texas votes, gerrymander really doesn't do anything. People can still vote. It doesn't matter what precinct they're in. It just goes into the state total.
Right, they're still voting for president, right.
But if they want to get into gerrymandering, they ought to go back, 10, 20, 30 years and go to Sacramento with John Burton and the crew and find out how gerrymandering experts, really did California. So, again, to me, it's the typical liberal projection. What they're complaining about is really what they do as well, right. Criminally almost, in regard to gerrymandering. And then the voter suppression, like you say, it's really the other way around. I mean, how much voter suppression was there in the last election? The turnout, what was the turnout in L.A. County and San Diego County? What was the number again, Doug?
Oh, geez, I don't even remember the number. It was huge.
Well, they talked about having 142, 128% turnouts,
Oh,
so,
yeah. Oh, you're talking about percentage. Oh, I thought you were talking numbers. Oh, yeah, 144% was the number.
So tell me, how was there...
So 144% of the registered voters in L.A. turned out to vote.
So how is there voter suppression? So...
136% down in San Diego County, just to let you know there, Alan.
Well, you got to know that that's going right with, I'm forgetting the mafiosa. Remember, vote early, vote often.
Yeah, vote early, vote often. Yeah, so Dennis, we've got 144% in L.A. County. I guess Hillary was bound to win that election in California.
Well, like you say, the L.A. Times, when they wrote the article, they talked about at least the 6 or 7 southern counties But, there is a huge fraud problem here in California, with illegals.
Yeah, so
with,
what you're saying is there wasn't enough
harvesting
suppression of the
ballots
vote in California.
Pardon me? So what?
There wasn't enough suppression of the vote in California, apparently.
Yeah. So, he's just looking for anything to talk about Trump being an illegitimate president. And they'll keep saying that until the next election. And if he wins the next election, which I hope he wins by even a greater margin, but we'll see what happens. Americans are kind of fickle. They'll start it up again. And I just think the opposition to them, they need to turn up the heat and just go after them. Because as you and I have talked about, this is a war that's going on, and there's no rules in a knife fight. So.
All right, very good. We need to go to break, but we got a lot to talk about today. This was something I added, so we haven't even started with the first topic I really want to talk about, which is the rule of law, and I'm glad Alan brought it up in his discussion on this topic. Rule of law. What is the rule of law? What does it mean? Why is it important? And how does the rule of law apply to government, to our society, to culture, and, well, ultimately also to impeachment? We'll talk about it after this break. Don't go anywhere.
You got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at All-Star Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of wreck and roll.
Our records indicate that you've been lied to. Listen to the truth. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, Saturdays at 1 p.m. on KMET. Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
Hey, do you know about the USA? Do you know about the government? Can you tell me about the Constitution? Hey, learn about the USA.
The Constitution is the instruction booklet for taking back the country. Douglas V. Gibbs.
1787, I'm told our founding fathers did agree to write a list of principles for keeping people free. The USA was just starting out.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. I was waiting for the gunfire. Maybe that's on a different one, or did I not hear it? Okay. Hey, do you have the gunfire by itself ready to roll by any chance?
Well, let's
one more
lock
time.
and load.
Yeah, one more time. Lock and load. All right, now I feel much better. I feel like I'm ready to deal with the left. Rule of law. In the Declaration of Independence, it's called the laws of nature and of nature's God. The rule of law is not God's law per se, but they are intimately related. The rule of law is, well, it's common sense, really. But what is the rule of law? What is it really? We naturally know what's right and wrong. As humans, when we follow a virtuous standard, when we follow the idea of being a virtuous people and we are morally centered, the rule of law is really what we know to be true because of our virtuous nature, which is based on what's been given to us by God, nature, the creator, or whatever else you want to call that force. That's the rule of law. The rule of law is not the rule of man. The rule of man is when men decide what is moral, when men decide what is right and wrong, and then they change the laws based on that belief system rather than that of the rule of law. And what we have going on, well, the way I like to explain it, most Christians anyway fully understand what I mean by that when I say this. When you abandon the rule of law and you embrace the rule of man, it doesn't take very long before you start dancing around a golden calf. Now, the rule of law is, we are endowed with it. And the rule of law includes, by the way, our natural rights. That's a part of it. We are endowed by the Creator with our natural rights and with the rule of law. And we are, and let me add something to this, which I want people to understand. When we are endowed by our Creator, the Creator existed first, before government. Government is a construct of man. The rule of law is a construct of the Creator. The rule of law, then, therefore, is more important than government and the rule of man. So when the rule of men and the rule of man starts grabbing hold of things, it is our responsibility as believers in the rule of law to set things on the right path. Now, also in the Declaration, it says that we are given claim of entitlement by the Creator, and that we are given so as with a separate station. In other words, we are individuals. Individually, we are given a claim of entitlement by the Creator. Now, when I say entitlement or entitled, I do not mean man's rule of man's version of that word. I mean God's rule of law version of that word. God said, this is yours. We are entitled to it. We have claim to it. The next one is all men are created equal. Once again, not rule of man version of equal, rule of law version of equal, which means we all have the natural rights, all of us. Even, and the founding fathers believed that. And they said, well, then what? How do you explain slavery? Oh, no, they believed those people also had the same rights, but because of the current situation, they didn't have access to those rights. But we're all created equal. We're all entitled to our God-given rights. We're all entitled to live in an orderly manner under the rule of law. Okay, that's what it means by all men are created equal. It is self-evident. We understand right and wrong. We understand what the rule of law truly is. We know that if government decided to write a law targeting all people with green eyes to be executed, we know that's against the rule of law. Doesn't matter if the rule of man says it's okay. We know in our hearts, it's self-evident that that is against the natural rule of law. And finally, it's unalienable. Your rights and the rule of law. It's inseparable. It belongs to us. It is ours. We possess it. And government's not supposed to interfere with it. They're supposed to make law that assists, that enables that, all of that, but they're not supposed to write law that tramples on it. Now that I've laid all that out, let's talk about it. And I want this to be whichever one of you gentlemen, and I hate to do this because the guys on the phone, have trouble hearing over each other. I might have a couple of them talking at once. Maybe I should pick a person to start. You know what? I'll tell you what. Let's start with Dennis because he's really the one of you three that has studied this more and has been in the Constitution classes more than you guys have. So I think he has a firmer grasp. I'm not putting you other two gentlemen down, but I'm going to start with Dennis here because I think he has a firmer grasp in the sense of his time in study. Dennis, rule of law. This is important. We seem to have lost our grasp on the rule of law. And it's funny. I was watching the news last night, and there was different things talking about how there's disciplinary problems in the schools, how there's problems with people and how they disrespect the authority of the police, how there's people doing things that they wouldn't have done before, how stealing has become more rampant, and so on and so forth. And to me, I see this as, well, it's a breakdown of the rule of law. The rule of man has been chipping away at the rule of law, and it's gotten to the point where people think they don't have to abide by the rule of law, which really comes down to just common sense and doing right by each other. Dennis, what's your thoughts?
Well, a big part of this component, and I wasn't thinking of this until you made your more recent comments, but for law to be effective, people have to be accountable. They have to be held responsible.
Right.
And when they are not enforcing laws, then it just empowers other people not to do anything. And this can be anything from, not enforcing immigration law that encourages more illegal immigration. I had years ago, one of my sons got in a car accident on the 210 freeway. He was rear-ended. It was the car that my mother-in-law gave to her grandsons, and he was the third son that drove it. He had two brothers below him. The car didn't make it. And then we got the insurance information, and then as I called on it, the insurance information was bogus. A policeman did show up, and I tried to pursue it. And basically, the person who hit the car was an illegal alien, and I was basically told by the cop, don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do. We're not going to chase it. They aren't going to enforce it in the courts. We're chasing our tail. You're just going to have to get by with whatever your insurance was. So I lost the car, got no compensation, and, again, no law enforcement. You've got policemen that their hands are tied. You have voter fraud that isn't followed up on. You have people in position of authority that the laws don't apply to them. I mean, just take a look at what's going on in D.C. right now. You have flat-out fabrication, fraud, and lies. The mainstream media carries it. These people ought to be thrown out of office, but they're empowered. They're supported because there's enough people that want that beyond what is right. So...
Well, they think that freedom means doing whatever the heck you want. And with freedom comes responsibility.
Well, you have to be a land of law and blind justice, or else you're just going to creep into any other type of government where it's whoever has the power makes the rules and gets away with stuff. Until somebody throws them out, and then the next guy comes in, and he has his inside group and his favors. Just like the kings of old. You overthrow the king, the new king takes the land and gives it to his buddies. So we have a huge breakdown here, and Trump is trying to, fight back. I'm disappointed in Romney. I'm disappointed in a lot of guys, but here you've got a guy who's been getting beat up illegally for 3 years. It's kind of like some kid at the school that's being outnumbered and being beat on, and then the kid finally, grabs somebody by the hair, punches an eye, hits him in the groin, and now the people that are watching say, well, that kid's been getting picked on, but he's fighting dirty. Hey, it's 5 against 1. That's kind of my thought process about there's no rules in a knife fight. There's supposed to be rules in Congress, but they're violating them. So what are you going to do? Just sit back and let them beat you up, or are you going to, take them to the mat? So all of this is growing out of the continued lawlessness that's been going on for 5 years, for 10 years, for 20 years, trying to overturn the election in 2016. All of that should have been nipped in the bud, but nobody will do it.
The left understand.
Go ahead, Alex.
The left understands that they are in a revolutionary condition right now. They're not fooling around. They're taking over this country just as if they were invading. And in fact, they are invading. They've got a whole invasion army coming over the border every day. And the understanding, the explanation for, like, Portland, where Antifa is allowed to beat the hell out of journalists and activists. The police stand by. They stand down. They don't help. They let these people get beat up, which is the same thing as the police doing it, as far as I'm concerned. But that's what we're dealing with here. Is these politicians, the left politicians, are on the side of the revolutionaries. They're on everybody's side but our side. Our side is the enemy.
So the rule of law is now been tossed aside and is being replaced by their version of the rule of law, which is really the rule of man, right?
It's the rule of revolution.
Well, and not only that, but also it seems to me they're doing everything they can to do the opposite of what the rule of law is. So therefore, if the rule of law says that the family unit is the basic building block of a strong society, well, then the family unit must be destroyed. If an economy's best chance of prospering is through a free market system, it must be destroyed. You see what I'm getting? It's like whatever is best and is fitting in the rule of law and it's best, it must be destroyed. In other words, if it sounds like it has anything to do with being a godly society, it must be eliminated. That's what I'm seeing here. And then they turn around and they call their version the rule of law when really it's the rule of man. And they say, well, the rule of law is what the judges say. No, the rule of law is what we know to be true. And every once in a while, about 1% of the time, the judges get it right. Or maybe more often than that, but it feels like 1% of the time. And really what we're dealing with is the rule of man. And like I said, we're dancing around a golden calf. We have tossed the 10 Commandments aside. We have tossed, and I'm not necessarily talking, religiosity. I'm not saying, oh my gosh, we got to, all, bow down, throw sackcloths on our back and pray to God if we're going to survive this, although I do believe that might be in our best interest. But what I am saying is that we can't abandon the natural rule of law that our whole system is based upon. Alan, would you like to add to this, please?
Oh yeah.
Well, you've read Bastiat, so this is right up your alley.
That's where I'm going. Obviously the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution came before Frederick Bastiat's The Law of 1849, but he is looking back at the Constitution and the United States at that time. He, in his first 2 pages, he nails what we're talking about today. For example, and you know me, I like to start at the very bare bones basics and work up. What we're really talking about is the great gift. The great gift is life. Life, and this gift of life includes physical, intellectual, and it's now really hitting me, moral life. These are the 3 aspects of life. And what we get from the Creator and from creation is we get individuality, liberty, and property. And as you all were talking earlier, I was thinking about in essence, a timeline. What came first? The Creator came first, then the creation, then humans, then government. Right. Government exists because humans created it, brought it into existence, empowered it. It does not rule. It has never been intended to rule over humans. Humans are meant to rule over their government. But think about this. One of the essences of life, and you just talked about it a moment ago, we understand physical, we understand intellectual, but what is being pushed aside in this art of misdirection that is an absolute key part of life is the moral life. Because when you don't talk about the moral aspect of life, in essence, you destroy the existence of God. And when you can do that, you can destroy the existence of a family. You can destroy the right to have property and liberty. This to me is where this is going. To the point of the law. We, as creatures from the Creator, we are given the right to defend, not take, but defend with force if needed, our person, our liberty, and property. This is the great thing that we have. And when people decide to group together into a community or country and create a government, a centralized or common force, they can only have what we can give them. And what we can give them is the power or the force to protect our individual rights, not take them from us.
Well, just secure is the word I would use, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. And so the force is to be used to defend our rights, not take them away from us or others.
Right. Well, they're there to secure our rights, and a part of securing our rights is to restrain themselves from interfering with those rights. That's a large part of it. Yeah. And what has happened is they're all over our rights.
When you protect the people, and that's the purpose of a common law, is to protect people, their liberties, their property, and here's the key: cause justice to reign over all of us. There you got your equality. But when you don't begin here, which to me is an aspect of understanding, all of this comes from having a moral life. If you get rid of that concept, you can take anything away, because any of our rights are not tied to anything. But
and also Dennis had mentioned earlier justice. So when it comes to justice regarding the rule of law, because without justice, the rule of law is almost meaningless. And when we talk about justice, we're not talking about social justice and economic justice and all these other justices that the leftists come up with. We're talking about true justice, the consequences of not being responsible with your freedom. Well, then we bring in another aspect, and the reason why I'm inserting myself here is I got to go to break also. But a part of reaching that justice in a system based on the rule of law is two things. Number one, you're all innocent until proven guilty. And number two, there's a due process that's involved. And I'm going to talk about due process after the break, so don't go anywhere.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com. The Constitution Association's website is at constitutionassociation.com. Constitution Association believes that the Constitution is the solution and the real hope for America. Be a hero in America's story. Make a difference. Protect, preserve, promote, restore the Constitution. Reclaim the Republic. Make America constitutional again. constitutionassociation.com. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization.
The true patriots of All-Star Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by All-Star Collision is washed, detailed, The headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
I think that rendition should be played every time. Every time we come back on, I want that rendition played. All right, just one more time. A few gunshots, real quick. Now remember, this is the only radio program that's ever had live gunfire on it. Remember, what was it, 2 months ago or something, or a month and a half ago? We actually had live gunfire on this program. All right, let's talk about live gunfire. No, we're in California right now. We're not even allowed to talk about. Well, I guess we could talk about it, but then they're going to ask us to get a background check before we talk about it pretty soon. The essential elements of due process. Let's talk about due process for a second, because we're talking about justice. So when I talk about justice, I'm not talking about the make-believe rule of man justices that have been brought up and created by the left. I'm talking about rule of law, as we've been talking about, a moral, godly type of system. By the way, real quick, after this show, I'm running out the door after I change my clothes. I'm not going to wear the IPAC shirt to it tonight, although it would be appropriate, because the Riverside County Republican Party has grabbed hold of me for tonight. I will be attending the Republican Party Liberty Dinner at Casino Morongo, which is right up the road from our station in Banning. But now, for those of you who don't live in Southern California, you don't care. That's okay, Doug. Get on with it. For the rest of you, Liberty Dinner at Casino Morongo. I think it's too late to get tickets, though. But I was able to secure myself a seat. I wasn't sure. Usually I'm there not only with a seat at the dinner, but I also have books on a table to sell. I'm going to take my books, but I didn't clear it ahead of time. So I'm going to ask the chairman of the Republican Party if I can set my books up. And if he says yes, then great. And if he says no, I'm going to see if there's any vendors I know and give them the books to set up for me. Because that's the way I roll, brother. All right, due process. The essential elements of due process are notice, an opportunity to be heard, the right to defend in an orderly proceed, and an impartial judge. Those are, and this is according to the legal world. Everybody, well, not everybody, Nancy Pelosi probably doesn't believe that. We can tell with the impeachment hearings. But those are the elements of what due process is. You have to be given notice. You got to know what's going on here. You have the opportunity to be heard. You have an opportunity to defend yourself. And that includes presenting your own witnesses, subpoenaing, using subpoenas to get your own witnesses, and so on and so forth. The right to defend in an orderly proceed. Once again, the voice of the defendant is also important, and an impartial judge. The reason why I bring this up is not only is that a large part of the rule of law, but it's also supposed to be also a part of impeachment. The House of Representatives has the power to impeach. The U.S. Senate has the power to hear that impeachment. Impeachment is a charge, not removal from office. So for those of you who thought when I said impeachment, I meant removal from office, that's not what impeachment means. Look it up. Impeachment means the charge, the conviction through the Senate. That is what could bring removal from office, doesn't have to. And what's happening is in the proceed in the House, they are not following due process. They have disallowed the Republicans to subpoena. They've disallowed the Republicans to even participate in it. In other words, it's just an investigation, and they're not even filing articles. They're not doing a vote to move forward with it. Nothing like that. They have completely tossed aside all the rules, historical rules that the House has used regarding impeachment. Now, in the Constitution, it just says that the House has the sole power of impeachment. The rules on how to proceed with that in the House have been established through tradition and internal rules of procedure by the House over the last 200 and so odd years. But nonetheless, Speaker of the House Pelosi has tossed all that aside, including due process. Due process is non-existent here. And it's fascinating to me that the House thinks that it can completely run this. Now, I don't know if she has enough votes when it comes to the House, because we have a new crop of Democrats in the House that got in because Republicans were retiring, or they were just, acting like rats in a sinking ship and jumping in the water, or in some cases legitimate retirements, and in some cases they got voted out because they were rhinos and the voters just didn't show up for them, and the Democrats won these seats. But many of these seats, if not most of them, that switched over in this last election are in Republican districts. So these Democrats who hold these offices hold offices with voters who think in a Republican manner and likely do not support impeachment. So I don't believe all of the Democrats are going to hold hands and jump over the cliff together. I believe there's going to be a handful of them that go, whoa, gosh, I've got this Republican district. If I vote for impeachment, I might not get reelected. Maybe I should either abstain, not show up, or vote against impeachment. Now, that said, even if she did have enough votes for impeachment, and it did go to impeachment, it's moronic to think that it could go any further than that, because the Senate, number one, is controlled by Republicans. Number one. So more than likely, conviction is, unlikely. The Democrats would need to, or let me rephrase that. The Democrats would need nearly 20 Republicans to jump ship in order for the Senate to convict, number one. Number two, while it does say that the Senate has the authority or the power to hold the hearing for impeachment, doesn't say they have to. The Senate could say, you know what, this is ridiculous. There's not enough evidence. We're not even gonna hold the hearing. It's a waste of taxpayer money. So Pelosi and all you people are doing this for political reasons. Too bad. We're not even going to hold the hearing. They could do that. Here's the other thing. Pelosi thinks through the House that she can decide what the rules are. That's why she's not allowing the Republicans to subpoena. Well, guess who's controlling the Senate? So Senate's going to set up the rules of the trial. And it could get very interesting. It could be the deep state Royal Rumble we're looking forward to. Orange jumpsuits? You never know. We might get the Democrats testifying against each other. That said, we are at the top of the hour, so we're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about all of what I said, impeachment, the House, the Senate, and what Trump's team can do with my co-hosts after this break. This is the long one, top of the hour. Don't go anywhere. We are coming back for the second hour.
The preceding was a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
This is 1490 AM KMET, Banning, Beaumont, Redlands, and Palm Springs.
From
News,
ABC
Talk,
News.
Sports.
I'm Dave Packer. No quid pro quo, says Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, defending President Trump's phone call with the Ukrainian president, saying there was no impropriety with Trump's request that Ukraine investigate Joe Biden and his son, and that the delay of aid